City Hall.
I need some City of Norman swag.
Want to plug their in?
Anthony, you checked in on the missions, all good?
This is yours. It's just your itineraries.
Here we go. Good evening and welcome to the City Council special meeting of Tuesday, June 3, 2025. Will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Councilmember Ball, Councilmember Peacock. I'm gonna just mark them. For now, they may come in. Councilmember Montoya, Councilmember Grant, Councilmember Nash.
Here.
Councilmember Hinkle.
Here.
Councilmember Holman. Councilmember Dixon,
I am here.
Mayor Heikla.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. You might be in Okie if you have a tornado go overhead and you still sit down for council meeting. So, three items on the agenda. The first of these is consideration of adoption, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of Resolution R 2425-132, a resolution of the Council of the City of Norman authorizing submission of a grant application for the 2025 Political Subdivisions Opioid Abatement Grant from the Oklahoma Opioid Abatement Board to fund a 3-year partnership as outlined in the staff report. I'll entertain a motion to adopt or reject the resolution.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is to adopt the resolution by a show of hands. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion passes.
And council, just a note, Ashland in the city attorney's office is our opioid abatement assigned staff person. And we were given a really short window to make a decision on council's desire to apply. But fortunately, we've gone through this exercise once before with the opioid grants and the development of an RFP that Ashland kept handy and was able to get out on the street quickly. And because we're as nimble as we are able to make that deadline, which is why we had to bring it to you as a special meeting item. We would have been late if we'd had to wait until next Tuesday to adopt such a resolution. So we appreciate Ashland and her constant attention to this big chunk of money. We want to make sure Norman has access to those dollars because we know we have families that were affected.
Yes, thank you. And that goes to the Virtue Center, right? $75,000 a year. Yeah, $75,000 a year for 3 years. Is
The
that
current proposal, it's $166,000 for a year for 3 years.
156,
166.
66. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have
Yes.
I was just wondering if you were open to extending and adding additional projects to that amendment or to that proposition?
Not in this form, no, ma'am. Let's talk afterwards if we can.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear you.
Yes, absolutely.
That's already passed.
We did apply.
Oh, there you go. Item number 2, very apropos topic. Update on April flooding events and discussion of stormwater infrastructure.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. Sorry I was late. I was watching storms. Kind of a great night to be talking about this. We did have a request to come and kind of fill you guys in a little bit of what we saw during the 2025 storm events in April. A lot happened and a lot went on. Going to kind of go through a lot of that here, go through some facts and figures, some photos, and if you have any questions or comments or want further information, just let me know and we'll stop there and discuss it so we can make sure that we can get everybody's answers to any questions that you may have. Got to start off with this. I'm sorry. We put road closed signs up for a reason, and it's to protect the traveling public. This person drove around 3 road closed signs to get himself into this predicament. The reason we leave,
He's driving a Bronco.
I didn't even go through anything. The reason we leave road closed signs up is because we do not know the condition of the road or what's under the road or if it's safe. We leave those signs up until we can get out and inspect it and make sure it's safe for travel. In this case, it was not. You can't see the hole in the road at this point. I don't know if it's the water or just the timing. I had reports of people throwing the signs on Indian Hills where we had known damage under the roadway into the bar ditches and leaving them there. I was getting daily emails from police saying, "Is it open?" No, it's not. Please, we're trying to protect you here and serve you well. So let me just kind of lay the groundwork here a little bit of kind of what we saw. These are two maps. The first one there is showing the 30-year average prior to this year. The average rainfall for the month of April was 3.64 inches over 30 years. Well, about like that, not too much. This year in April, we had 14.06 inches. So almost 5 times that amount of rain. You can imagine what that does. We all know it's been kind of a wet season, so things were already kind of in a really rough situation. The main storm event that we were really watching was that April 19th through April 30th. That's when we seemed to see the most of the flooding and the most damage that was being done. Want to kind of compare this back. I know that we're all saying this was a historic event. It was, but I want to go back and compare it to 2015. That chart there on the left side was produced back then. You could see that by about May 6th, we had really kind of started to climb pretty fast. We'd gone past the normal average for May. By about the 18th, we were over the previous May record of about 13.5 inches. Then any month ever, we exceeded just a few days later. It kept going to where we finally wound up in the 500-year, 30-day accumulation storm. So very severe flooding. Each one of those yellow dots, all 5 of them were flash flood events that we experienced, we'd been out and responded to. And then just for fun, we threw in that EF1 tornado, 'cause, you know, you got to do something to keep things exciting, right? Kind of wanted a little more comparison here of those two photos. The first, the one there in the middle is from 2015 of the Twin Bridges, so going over Alameda, over the lake. You can see that was completely underwater. Nobody thought that that water would top that, so it was just, everybody was amazed by that. And then the farthest one there on the right is actually this year. You can see that the water is up the side of the bridge, but not yet to the road, and a lot of debris. A lot of debris had made it to this point. Just some different ways to look at it. And then kind of finally, Lake Thunderbird peak elevations, May of 2015 was 1,053 feet. This year it was around 1,047 feet. Normal's 1,039. That's kind of a hard thing to judge because they may be discharging more, they may be doing some other things that affect that, but it just kind of shows you kind of a varying degree of what we were experiencing.
Scott, is that debris from the tree field that's just to the north of the bridge?
That is north of the bridge, so that would have been stuff that was washing down the little river through that area and then collecting along the bridge because it couldn't flow under. I'm gonna say if I have a boat on Thunderbird, I may not want it out right now. There's logs floating under the water.
You mentioned about discharging.
Yes, sir.
The city of Norman is not in charge of
That's correct.
discharging that water.
That's
not
correct.
us.
The Army Corps of Engineers and you know, of course, the lake is under control of the Bureau of Reclamation.
Yes, sir.
They control all those discharges, and so that's not something that we have anything that we can control.
We do recognize the folks at COMCD. They usually get a hold of Mr. Mattingly and his team and say, hey, you can drink all the water you want out of Lake Thunderbird for free to help get down below that, that overflow yield. So we turn off the well field and try to drink as much of that Lake Thunderbird water as we can when it's available, just do what we can.
Yeah, so we do what we can, you know, we do our part. Couple more photos from 2015. The first one is just west of 72nd on Rock Creek Road. I don't know how deep that is. I'm glad I wasn't there to find out because it looks like it's flowing very quickly there. Another thing I'd like to mention is that a vehicle can float in 10 inches of water. So if you're driving in 10 inches of water, there's a chance you can float. If there's moving water, you can be washed off the roadway. So
You didn't
just,
have a Bronco to test it out?
we were only about 7 inches, I think, at that point. But and then also a picture here of right across the street at Andrews Park. You can see the waters all the way across the parking lot. I remember during this event, we actually had debris that kind of shows how high the water got. It was all the way on the south side of the road, about halfway up to the building A. So a lot of water, a lot of damage, a lot of things we had to consider. I also want to point out this wasn't just Norman that was affected. We all know that everybody was hit. Just kind of want to compare this to some of the other communities around us. We were about the same as Norman, or Norman and Moore and Lawton. We're all in the same range. Purcell got almost 2.5 inches more than we did. If you think about that proximity, kind of shows how the storms were very difficult to work with. That top picture is Blanchard, where the road washed out, leaving people stranded. Kind of heard that was a dam failure that kind of caused that. Got a lot of water to flow out very quickly. Lexington Fire Department responding to a vehicle trapped there in the picture on the lower left. And then that last one is Lawton, Oklahoma. And just in case you're confused, that thing with the lid sticking up, that's the top 8 inches of a pickup truck in the bottom of this location.
Oh, snap.
So we're talking 5-6 feet of water at this location. I love the sign in the foreground, when flooded, turn around, don't drown. That didn't heed much here in this location.
If there's guys in scuba gear, big note.
Yeah,
Tailgate lid to let the water out.
yeah, he was trying to hope maybe it would float, I'm not sure. Of course, we know that there was major problems in Moore, there was fatalities in Moore and other fatalities in Oklahoma due to the flooding. I also want to take a moment and just recognize the effort that it takes when these storms hit like this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but we had a lot. These are just the different departments that wound up being involved. City Clerk's office, our action center was inundated with calls and they were doing their best to keep up. I think there were extra people answering phones to get it to where it needs to be able to help our citizens. Fire and police, you can see in the photo, they're both there on location taking care of our citizens, out there helping us watch for places where road closures need to occur and watching out for our public safety. Of course, our emergency management group out there, they were working hard this entire time. Public Works were out there looking at road closures and items that were happening. Were roads safe? Could we reopen them? Utilities, they have line breaks. I know that they probably had some excess water coming into the water reclamation facility, which means that they had to do some extra operations to make that work. The city manager's office, we had our communications group. Tiffany was amazing in helping get information out to our public repeatedly. And parks, like we showed in that previous, there were parks that were flooded. They had to make sure that they were safe to open back up to people, making sure that there wasn't damage occurring and helping us watch the flooding issues. So when we have these events, it's not one group or a small group. It takes a lot of our resources and a lot of our effort. And I appreciate each one of these groups and what they did to help during this event. So start getting down to drill into it here. These are the storm impacts that we saw during this storm event. There's a lot of different colors there. High water, park maintenance, property flooding, road closures, roadway damage, and stormwater maintenance calls that they went out on. You can see there's a lot of them on this screen. There's a lot of things that happened. They ranged all the way from 72nd West to 180th East and from Post Oak to Indian Hills. So basically this hit all of Norman. A lot of times we'll see that maybe it's the Little River that gets hit, or maybe it's Core Norman that gets hit, or East Norman. This was community-wide. We were hit in all areas. Very serious damages across town, a lot of resources going out to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our citizens. So when we start looking at what we were impacted by, we had a lot of public infrastructure impacts. That smaller picture there is Emhoff Creek at Main Street, which we see go under quite a bit. This isn't something that we're unaccustomed to, unfortunately. But also that second one is Rock Creek at 72nd Avenue in the area around Tecumseh. You can see the bridge, it's flooded, there's water across it, and you can tell by looking at this, water's moving. This is another place where we had some swift movement of water. That would have been, you can see debris all the way across the roadway. So we saw this, these are just a couple of pictures. This was noticeable all over town. You're gonna see more pictures as we go through more of this. But there are also a lot of private property concerns, a lot of private property impacts. And these are the ones that are harder for us to quantify. We don't find out about all of these. That top photo is a driveway. That's a small creek that goes through there. These people were cut off from getting to their home because of this flooding that occurred. The middle one is a private pedestrian bridge over Brookhaven Creek that connects a small community to their pool. And it completely collapsed. And we had to issue emergency permits for them to be able to get that cleared out so that Brookhaven Creek would continue to flow properly. And then, of course, detention ponds all over town were overflowing that are under the maintenance of the HOAs or the property owners there. And so they're seeing damages occurring also. So there's a lot of impacts throughout all of Norman. A lot of great aerial photos. These came through our emergency services. You're going to see a lot of these through here. And it's great to have the ability to throw a drone up in the air and get some of these now. This is Franklin Road and 24th Avenue Northeast. You can see the car that was stranded there. The report we got is when crews got there, the water was up to the windshield. So you can imagine how that must have been very scary. I don't know how you wind up in that location, but you can. You can see that fire is still here at this location. By looking at this, you can see there's still a lot of water movement in this photo, in these photos. Still a dangerous situation. The water is super clean. Just can't amaze how clear it is in this picture. Obviously, it's because there's a lot of plowed fields in the area, but usually when we get these kind of rain events, it is washing off a lot of sediment. That has a long-lasting impact on our creeks and streams. So a lot of things that we have to stay aware of as we move out and into cleanup. 10 Mile Flats was heavily impacted. These are just some photos. I live kind of in this area, a little up the hill on Tecumseh. So my first thing I do is I drive down to 10 Mile Flats. I drive around to Main Street. I check some of those locations. And this was basically pretty close to what I saw. You can see that large picture there, very large area inundated. There's still areas prior to this that were inundated in that area that are still continuing to drain that we're having trouble with. Just some more photos. I don't know how deep the water is that car is going through. I can't see the road. I don't know if I would have wanted to have been driving down the middle of that, but they obviously were. And you can see just another photo there of just the extent of the rain and the flooding that we saw in that area. So to kind of look at just the hard infrastructure here for a moment, this is just a map showing the roads that were closed and roads where we knew we had overtopping. The overtopping are the lines in blue, the closures are in red. You can see that there were a lot of them, again, northwest to southeast. It's interesting that the northeast doesn't quite show as much. I don't know if that was just because it was unreported or just, I can't answer that one. But there were some of these areas and people are saying, well, if the water was overtopping, why weren't the roads closed? In some of those locations, it's just because it's very shallow. Or in a lot of cases, it's because the water receded before we actually had time to get our road closure signs out there. So it's kind of a mixed bag of why those weren't closed at the time. Again, showing photos of road closures. You got the first one there, which is East Franklin Road at 12th Avenue Northeast. This is the Little River corridor, which we see massive flooding in every event. That middle picture is, of course, Robinson Street between 48th and 60th Northwest. Still closed. We're going to have some more photos and discussion on that one in a minute. And then, of course, Porter Avenue north of Tecumseh. This is where it comes down into the flats across the Little River. I've seen it get 2 feet deep here in the past. I don't know what our actual elevations were here, but it floods for about 1/4 mile. So this is another location that we always know to check and get road closed signs up, because that's another location where motorists can get stranded. Structures, we didn't have quite as many structures as we've had in past events. We had 29 reports of personal property flooded or damaged, or flooded and damaged. 24 were related to flooding on the property or washed out in inaccessible driveways. Most of those you'd expect to be in East Norman, where there's a lot of the bar ditches and those events can wash out driveways, they can watch out the culverts, so there's a lot of that area that's damaged. 5 flooded structures, including garages, sheds, and patios. The interesting thing is none of the locations where we had reports of flooding were in a floodplain. They were all outside of floodplains. But to kind of build on that, they were all areas that we're aware of. There was nothing new. We didn't really have a new report of an area. Now, there are areas that were flooded and people that were flooded that may not be reported here. So we may not have all the reporting. A lot of people don't really want to report, or it hasn't made it to us or to the state. We did go to our areas where we have repetitive loss, meaning those structures are been flooded repeatedly over time and have made claims, so that goes into the repetitive loss, which means that's someplace that we want to be more aware of. None of the structures were in those areas. And like I said, they were all in areas that we expected to find flooding.
How'd the vineyard do?
I'm sorry?
How does the vineyard do?
There was no flooding reported in that area.
Good job.
They made it halfway up Bill's driveway,
Did it?
but that's about it.
Halfway.
Nothing came in the house.
In 2015, my standard line, somebody would call and go, "We're flooded." And my immediate response was, "I'm so sorry. How much water got into your living room?" Well, none. Well, did it come in the hallway? Did it? No. Did it get in your garage? No. So you have ponding water in your yard. Because we were having so many flooding complaints, and we had to start breaking it down by, are you personally impacted with your personal property or just your yard? So some of the reasons, why are we having flooding problems in Norman? I think that's something that bears some brief discussion. In a lot of areas, especially in core Norman, it's a lack of infrastructure, or it's undersized. This picture is actually sitting on Lahoma facing south. I took this photo, and to kind of show you the dedication of our emergency services, as I was sitting there, I had a police car pull up next to me with 2 officers in it. And they said, "Sir, if you'll turn around and go down the alley, go." And I looked at them and I said, "I'm with Public Works. I'm here on purpose. I'm not going through it. I'm just taking photos." And they were like, "Okay." I said, "But thank you for what you do. And I'm glad you're out here trying to keep us all safe." But as we were sitting there, so you've got Imhoff Creek literally 20, 30 feet to the right of this photo, and it's overflowing. It's out of its channel. This is where the WPA channel is. And it's across the roadway. Well, even if we had more stormwater collection 3 blocks away and we put in bigger pipes, it would get to here and it couldn't go anywhere and it would back up. So it's a chronic problem. It's just all designed in an older time when we didn't have the same drainage regulations we do today. That's a challenge we're going to continue to have. We're going to have to continue to fight and find solutions. Really, the best thing we do is find ways to store the water to release it slow, like a detention pond, which needs space.
You did show some detention ponds in newer neighborhoods that were overflowing
Mhm.
also. So even maybe depending on the event, even newer infrastructure can't handle
Absolutely.
what's happening in that case too. So
Absolutely correct. And, there's some of those locations that we need to go back and we need to look at the outfall structures. Are they blocked? Is there a problem? Is there a reason why they're not being able to flow properly? But because we got those repetitive flows again and again, I don't think they were having the time to discharge back down to a natural level. And also, like now, all of our soils are saturated, so any water that falls goes straight off and into wherever the collection spot is.
and do we inspect all the HOA retention ponds?
So we do have a
Make sure
program.
they're maintaining them?
Our stormwater quality group does go out and do the inspection of detention ponds. What I'm not sure of and I need to follow up on is how is that reported back to them? I will say, and we're going to get to that in a minute here, but we're going to talk more about private infrastructure too. As we say here, you also, the last bullet point here, lack of maintenance to private infrastructure impacts public infrastructure. If they're not maintaining their pond properly, it can come back and impact the public infrastructure. The problem is that there's no manual, there's no handoff. Those HOA president that's, the 5th one to be in doesn't know that there's a maintenance requirement. How do we as a community get that word out there better? How do we better train our HOAs and the management companies as to what they can do? Because by the time they come to us, it's a major problem. And if it was addressed periodically, we may be able to keep it at a smaller problem and take care of it better. A lot of the channels that we have in Norman actually are on private property. They're not in a public easement. Or they're in a common area of an HOA, which means it's their responsibility to maintain. And so we have a lack of maintenance in those areas, which can lead to larger problems.
Or would we be allowed to require something of every HOA president has to get this certification from the city or has to sign off on something?
I don't-
know, something like that.
I don't know. We've talked, there's lots of things that this event has kind of brought to our attention. Is there a way that we can do more public education? Is there a way that we can reach out better? I don't know if we could require somebody to do that. I don't know. We'd have to look at that. That's an option. We need to see what some other communities do with that type of situation. Also, I think that we need to look at, before we finally accept a neighborhood, maybe we need to have them do a final survey of the detention pond to find out how much silt's built up in it. I think there's some things that we can improve. I mean, you always look for improvement. And that's, sometimes that's small steps, but they build up to be a big step. But I do think this is an area that we need to spend more attention and look at what we can do to improve, to help our communities do better.
So, and council, when we think about the Andrews Park Master Plan and the major component being the giant water features, and there's a whole bunch of stormwater control value engineered into that particular plan. So it's an expensive master plan, but if that gives us a little more uphill support to avoid channels further south and southwest, at least it's the space we need to help make some of those improvements.
Yes, ma'am.
A note on the HOAs, I think Neighborhood Alliance is definitely an avenue. They also educate HOAs that disbanding is not just you're not meeting anymore, you're actually financially liable. If your HOA is defunct and there's damages, you can be sued and all the property owners are assessed.
I think Neighborhood Alliance, I think that part of the problem is we don't have any way to reach out to all these HOAs. They're not registered. We don't know who the person is to reach out to.
That is an effort underway. And we know Neighborhood Alliance is in kind of almost a door-to-door scenario. We're looking at assistance to the assessor's office, where it's identified in people's deeds that there is an HOA and this is where their dues get paid. The long-term goal would be to develop a GIS layer of all the HOAs. And then what is recorded? What are those public spaces that the HOA is to maintain? And that's one of those scenarios where a picture really could be worth 1,000 words when you're able to see them all on one map. And then the data below it to say, who's the president? Who's got the checkbook? Where do we need to go make contact when there's a failure in infrastructure in any one of those neighborhoods? With better information, we will be able to improve communications and help those neighborhoods solve some of their internal problems. Scott, did we receive word on the grant we were pursuing in conjunction with the Summit Lakes HOA?
We did. We've been granted that. We've gotten that grant. We've gotten the notice. It's actually in my slide first. You're jumping ahead of me here.
So
But we did get that one, and that's a place where we can assist. I also want to point out that in the second stormwater utility, we actually have what we call neighborhood assistance, and that was going to be like $200,000 a year set aside, where these neighborhood HOAs could reach out and say, we need help. And we may reach out and give them technical assistance, but we may be able to do kind of like a 50-50 program that we do for sidewalks, or we could try to start assisting them further. So this isn't a new issue. We've been trying to find ways to help address this for a while. I just think that we've got new tools available to us now that we need to start using in a better way.
And then I was gonna say, I keep pushing things off to retreat because, time to prepare. But I would like to discuss what the legality is about a certification process for new presidents, if city legal could look into that. And then I like the Andrews stormwater plan. I understand there's a lot of detention built into that. We also have an Alameda Stormwater Park. I drove by the other day. That billboard is still up and I don't see any movement. I thought we moved a little faster, but that is also like a major detention area as well that will bring improvements. And when it comes to stream bank stabilization, that is something that I get a lot of feedback. I think Brooks area might be an area I had sent you in the past about residents being concerned about trees being washed away through erosion, and I don't really know what the solution there is. It's not. I don't know if the residents, they just like report it, but what are we doing on our side?
A lot of those areas that have been reported are actually on private property owned by those property owners. So
they
we
could put
do
the-
not, it's their responsibility to maintain, just like an HOA would in a bigger area.
So maybe there's something there about educating private property owners about the stream bank stabilization, what to do if your trees are washing away.
So, Councilmember Grant, we recognize there are many communities in Oklahoma that have similar issues, and I wonder what resource or what kind of organization through OML would be worth a conversation. We know that OML works together to look for solutions to address, homeless issues, and I know Councilmember Grant participates in a subcommittee of OML on that issue. But this would be a good thing to tee up with OML and just ask if there's a great approach, we should be able to share all those successful ideas among
Yeah.
other agencies.
Okay. Well, that was it for me.
So I do also want to point out that there's also a lack of maintenance on the public infrastructure. We have public infrastructure that is just failing, and we're going to show photos and discuss some more of that as we go forward. Part of that's because the materials that were used in the past, we don't use some of those materials anymore. Also, street and inlet cleaning. We have one crew that's out there. We have 4 street sweepers that are running every day that they can. When they're all running, they are a high maintenance item. They tend to be broken down quite a bit. But they're out there cleaning the streets, trying to keep debris off the streets as much as possible. They are trying to help clean inlets. We send crews out like today, if we have big events coming, they're gonna go out and check some of the known areas and try to clean out the inlets. But when we have these repetitive, it's knocking stuff down off the trees, it's washing debris down to the inlets, they're getting clogged. So, we're kind of fighting a maintenance issue too. So I kind of dogged on the private HOAs. I gotta say that we still do the best we can with what we have, and then we still have problems with stream bank stabilization on our streams also.
Are we still trying to buy 2 more street cleaners? Or did we manage to get 2 more street cleaners?
We have not, and that was, the last I saw, that was all part of the stormwater utility.
Okay.
And with the stormwater utility not passing, we didn't get the extra equipment, and we also would not have the extra operators without a funding source for how to pay for those additional operators. So it's equipment and operators to get that program to grow and get bigger to where it can do more street sweeping.
It's not like our litter crew that we just approved the day labor ban's gonna
Right.
hit all that. I mean, it'll be a help, but it won't be the same as.
No, a street sweeper does, they remove tons of
Yeah.
debris every month. I know you guys see the reports, and I'm amazed at how many tons of debris they remove from our streets month after month after month.
Shakira had a question too.
Oh, sorry. My question is, since you were talking about the stormwater utility, I'm looking at the map, the storm impacts April 2025, the first one with all the colors, and it looks like the stormwater maintenance has more markers on the entire map. Is that indicative of the need for a stormwater utility?
Well, I definitely think we could get to more items more quickly if we had a second crew that was we have 2 crews. One is basically out there taking care of the streams, and one's out there taking care of the inlets and the infrastructure, the stormwater pipes. And they can't keep up. They fall more behind every event. And we don't have the ability to add another crew. That's another item that has been listed in each of the stormwater utilities, is adding another entire crew. With the crew, that's 4 guys, 5 guys, depending on the crew. Backhoe, truck, trailer, it's a large expense. And then, of course, with that, you need to be able to replace that equipment. So we'd worked in equipment replacement over time through the utility, just like our our, water and wastewater utilities and sanitation do today, where they replace their own equipment through the utility. So a lot of that is looked into. I think I can't give an exact reason for why we see so many of those dots on the map. I think a lot of it's because there were action center calls, and they were the ones responding to those action center calls. I think it's probably a lot of it.
Okay.
And some of it may be areas that they know are known problems, and they automatically just mobilize to the problem spots first.
Proactivity. Thank you.
Another flooding factor is, of course, water. This is just a map showing all the different little creeks and systems in Norman. Of course, across the north there, you've got the Little River, which is very flat. It's great farmland. That's why it's mostly used there for crops and hay. So that floods. It's a wide floodplain. So we see a lot of flooding. That's why we see so much flooding along Franklin. And then, of course, the 10 Mile Flats on the far west side of Norman. It's called 10 Mile Flats for a reason. So you can see there's a lot of flooding occurs there, but you can see all the other streams that impact, and the water that gets to those, they get to an obstruction, or they just get too much water, they come over the roadways and can cause flooding. So I do want to point out that since the 2015 floods, we've done some work that's actually come through and helped with flooding issues in Norman. So we're not sitting still, we're always moving forward. The first one I want to point out is the vineyard area that we were discussing earlier. The picture there on the left is what it looked like before. Fairly small area, not very deep. They actually, I'm going to say doubled, but probably not doubled the size of that detention pond, and also improved the inlet and outlet, and then the flume that takes it down to the tributary to Walnut Creek. So a lot has happened there. This area was done because there were homes in the area that were repetitive loss homes. So it made a high priority to be able to get those out of that repetitive loss category. Main Street Bridge over Brookhaven Creek. This is the bridge that, we started work on a Monday or Tuesday, and then Tuesday night, the bridge collapsed because of the rain event that we had that night. So it was very lucky that we were already under construction. We didn't have to go get a firm, but it completely failed. We had to close the bridge. You can see it was just two pipes. The picture there on the left was just two. They were 60 or 72-inch pipes. I can't remember now. It's been a long time. You can see that we came back with 3 like 10-by-6 boxes, very large boxes to help carry the water. This did reduce flooding on Main Street as well as in the surrounding neighborhoods to the south of Main Street. So a great project. We also did another project just a little bit further west of here where I want to say Arbor Lakes, but it's not Arbor Lakes. It's south of the Cambridge Place addition, where we replaced some structure. We put in a bigger structure under the roadway to help the water get, and that's helped some of the flooding in that area too. That location would get about 3 foot deep. It didn't flood in this rain event. By the way, the Main Street Bridge was a 2012 bond program. Franklin Road, west of 12th Avenue, is another 2012 bond program. That's the Little River and the bridge to the left. We built a new bridge over that. We raised the entire roadway up out of the floodplain. And the second structure to the right is actually another structure to allow the flow of those floodwaters from that large flat area to go under and not go over the top of the road. And then there's also a stilling basin there. If you ever look, there's a large low-lying area, and that allows the water to get in there, take some of the velocity out before it goes back into the Little River. Great project, very successful. That road doesn't flood today. I definitely can't get away from this topic without talking about the Lindsay Street project, which was a drainage project with a road on top. That is Lake McGee shown in the upper picture there. And in the bottom shows some of the stormwater improvements we did on McGee, but we built an 8-foot by 7-foot box that went all the way from this intersection all the way to the river. I will say the apartment that you can see in the background on the left-hand side, I lived in those in college. I know what that flooding looked like. It was a lot of fun. But that was a great project, definitely another 2012 bond program.
Would you say that before the project that Lindsay Street and McGee would have to be closed once or twice or a couple times a year?
It would just depend on the year, but yes, it was As soon as it started raining, somebody mobilized that location to see if we needed to close it.
Has it had to be closed since the project was completed?
So we got report, it was not long after the project was completed, we got a report that, I heard it on the news as I was driving to work, that Lindsay Street was flooded at Lindsay. And I'm like, there is no way. I drove down there, my hair's on fire, and it was actually over to the creek, over behind the shopping center that goes north by the armory. And the water, you could see it coming up out of the manholes. And that flows back towards the big box at Lindsay and McGee. So we waited for it to dry out a little bit. We sent a camera down there and we realized that there was a large blockage. You couldn't see through it. It was completely blocked. We went in the manhole at Lindsay and McGee and looked back, and this was an ODOT project. They did the work on it, and they had actually left the form for that box in that leg. And we had about 10 foot of debris built up behind it. And when we kicked it all out, that came out, the water came rushing out, and we've never had flooding there again.
Sounds like a surgeon like leaving a tool inside.
It's about that bad.
But other than that,
It was one of those times where we were absolutely having a meltdown, and we go, "Huh, hey, it looks." But no, it is never. We have not had any flooding at this location since.
I guarantee it, we go down there every Sunday. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, it works really well. This location is also on that same project. This is the bridge over Emhoff Creek on Lindsay. My favorite bridge in Norman is the one that's got the cool columns. The upper picture is actually what it looked like before. You can see there's not much there. It used to overtop the road. It was a pretty bad situation. That picture in the middle is what the structure underneath looks like. It's called a contact span, and that is what is underneath there. And then the picture there on the right is actually the bridge structure after it's complete during a very high rain event. You can see how much water was flowing through there, but it opens it up, lets a lot more water flow through. We haven't had any flooding at this location, although it shows that in a 100-year storm, it is possible to get some minor overtopping at this location. We just couldn't get it high enough without causing other problems to get it to completely solve it.
And the word you use is contact?
Contech. 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 That's the brand.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And it's called a Conspan is what they call it. That's their proprietary name. If you've been to the Gathering Place, when you go underneath the land bridges on Riverside Drive, same, I think it's the same product or a very similar product. So you can use it to build bridge structures very efficiently.
So the picture in the middle, were there multiple of those?
The
They're all
whole
connected?
width of the bridge, and they connect together, and they're sealed up together, and then there's concrete around that. So yeah, it was a unique, it was the first time we'd used it. It can be costly. A lot of times we can do a box structure cheaper, so we haven't gone to this a lot. But this is something we always have in our pocket if we need to look at for future designs. I also want to point out another program that council has helped us with that's been really good is buying out houses that have repetitive losses. This photo that you see is one that's at 218 South Lahoma. If you can see that kind of green, musty, mossy line on the bottom, that is where the water level would get up to. If you notice, it's above the threshold of the door. So water would get 6 to 8 inches deep in this routinely. It came up for sale. They were willing to, we do not pay full price. Usually there's already been a loss on the property or an insurance payment. We were able to buy this property. That's what it looks like today on the right. So there's no structure there. It cannot flood. It's actually deed restricted. It can't be built on. And our plan is, we also bought 214 Lahoma, so 2 with the house in the middle now. The plan is to go back in there and do some natural plantings that make it more like a rain garden where they can help soak the water up. This also allows a little bit more water storage area. If we could buy more, we could probably go in there and do some kind of a detention in this area if possible. We just don't have enough space to do something like that. We've also bought a lot of, or several properties. We bought 2 since I've been here on the south side of the Main Street roundabout. And then a little further south of that, prior to my coming here, 4, 6, 8, I can't remember the number of homes further south that were repetitive loss that we bought that are now Clearfield too. Not something we do a lot of, but it's a great way to be able to impact our stormwater. And I just want to point out that we bring that to council, and council's assistance in allowing us to do that is making an impact in our flooding in Norman. We also have some upcoming projects that are going to help alleviate flooding. The first is the Porter Avenue Bridge. This is in our bridge bond program. I showed you the flooding here earlier. We're going to actually be raising the roadway, and it's going to be basically a bridge for about that half mile, whatever the length is. So all the water can go underneath, because it's a very unique situation with the way the water moves through there. So we'll be able to get this out of the floodplain. It will no longer flood. This is also a project that we got the Absentee Shawnee Tribe to give grant funding towards this, $13 million. This is under design. We're trying to get it out to bid as quickly as we can. Also, Lindsay Street from Elm to Jenkins, I'm going to say probably our new top three. You got Main Street and Lahoma, and I'd say then you have Elm and Lindsay as those two.
College too.
Yeah, and call that area. I would put those in depending on the storm, which one's worse. But the Lindsay Street project from Elm to Jenkins is actually going to be putting in a larger stormwater structure to carry the water to Emhoff Creek. Very excited to get that done. It will help with the flooding in this area. I don't know that we will solve all of the flooding, but we can at least impact it in a positive way. And then the project on Lindsay Street from Pickard to Elm, we're hoping to be able to do some things there to impact the flooding at College back towards Chautauqua in that area. These are both 2019 bond program. They are both currently in the ACOG funding, and we've just successfully gotten to do a swap. We'll be doing the Lindsay Street from Pickard to Elm first, and then we will do Elm to Jenkins. Part of the reason for that is because the university wants to do some work, and we would rather come in and fix the road after they're done instead of before they're done. That also gives us a little more time. We have had contact with the university, talked to them. We are under design on both these projects. I know I owe you a text. I've been trying to get some more information for you. These were both special corridors in our recent comprehensive transportation plan. We are designing them to be sensitive to those requirements. The most we're looking at right now is adding turn lanes at signalized intersections. We're minimizing our impact. We're trying to reduce right-of-way, trees impacted, and trying to maintain that residential feel through there, and then the university feel as we go forward through the university. And it's been interesting, the university actually had some comments. We took them in initial design. They went, that doesn't work for us for game day. We went, well, then we got to change that. And so we made changes to help them with game day traffic, because we obviously don't want to have a negative impact on that. And then here, the Summit Lakes Dam, we've been awarded the grant. We're now working on what we need to do on our next steps. We need to get the plans recertified, because the stamp on those is out of date now. And also putting together bid documents and how we get moving forward, and starting to put the pieces together to move forward with the Summit Lakes to get that project done. While that project does not currently cause flooding, if that dam were to fail, it would cause flooding and probably loss of life. So
And the total amount of the project, what's our full budget, Scott, for the Summit Lake?
Motion. 1.15.
And the grant was,
1.15.
But we have our matching grant from the funding for this. So it's a great project, one that I think I've been working on as long as I've been with the city. So happy to get this one off the books, and we'll keep looking for more opportunities and other projects.
It's a hallelujah time, and thanks to Beth for sorting that through, because we finally got it
Yeah.
to where it went. And then thanks to Congressman Cole for finding the money in wherever the drain opened up and drained the money away the first time.
Yep.
It's starting this year, or?
Yes, we're gonna be moving as quickly as we can on this project. Like I said, the first thing is making sure that we get the plans updated and then get the bid packet put together with those plans. And we still gotta work through, I think, some final legal issues with the HOA and the developer to make sure that we have everything in line, making sure all the agreements are accurate. You may be seeing some more items come into council to correct some of these items or get some of these items updated.
Who's going to maintain that after all this work?
So in this case, we're treating this one very much like we do a road project. If you want to turn a road over to the city, you have to bring it up to our current standard, then donate the right of way, then we will take it over for maintenance after that. We're doing the same thing here. once the dam itself is brought up to current standard and it meets all the OWRB requirements, then at that point, we're working on all the legal documents where they will actually dedicate the dam, not all of the area, but the dam area, and we will take over the maintenance of the dam, but they will continue the maintenance of the landscape, so the mowing and those items.
Does a stormwater utility fee factor into the maintenance of that in perpetuity? Like, where does the money come to maintain it?
No, at this point, we're just gonna have to absorb it into operating costs.
Okay.
But a stormwater utility is something that would add funding to be able to help us maintain this.
So
this
Summit Lake should be a yes when we get to that point.
You would hope so.
Yes. We would. All right.
Can, when it's fixed, can non-Summit Lakes HOA members fish from the dam that the HOA doesn't own?
We'll note that down, we'll check on that item for you.
Like, it's gonna come up.
Yeah.
Like,
Public dam now.
it's gonna come up.
And I see one of the programs that we've had in place for years and years in terms of bridge inspections. And there's a rotation and we have all of them on the list and we're taking pictures. It's the type of maintenance project that, I mean, that was an awful lot to assume an HOA president's gonna understand what their responsibility is. Cause that's not usual and customary neighborhood infrastructure. But our ability to have people who look at that kind of infrastructure every day, to be able to keep eyeballs on it, identify any issue early, and hopefully keep those maintenance
Well,
costs.
and we do have to do an annual dam inspection. So they have to be inspected, we have to keep, because the other thing that made this a high priority, it's a high hazard dam as designated, there's 4 in Norman.
Yep.
And we own 2 of them. No, we own 2 of them,
About to be 3 of them.
about to be 3, and then the other one, the property owner is working with it. They're kind of working around it. But we have to keep an emergency action plan, it has to be updated, it has to be signed, and basically we will, right now, they are doing that for the dam, we will take that over. So they are inspected, they come out and say, you got trees growing on the dam, those need to be removed. We'll say, let's go remove them. So it's not gonna be something, we're gonna get this fixed, it's gonna sit, and we're gonna, at some point, go, oh my goodness, there's a new problem. We're gonna know annually what needs to be done and be able to go and respond to it accordingly. Did you have another question? I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
I guess I was just kind of curious about when you say not usual or customary to have like a high hazard dam be a part of a development, we expect residents to, I might say for future zoning that comes through, that's probably a no-go.
We look at that, we look at that now. In fact, there was, we've had a couple of neighborhoods come through where we either thought that they would cause a dam upstream to become a high hazard dam, or that the dam that they're going to construct would become a high hazard dam. So we look for that as we're doing our review of the documentation that comes in for the final plat or the preliminary plat. We actually look at the preliminary plat to look at that. So we're actually now more aware of that and more cognizant of it, and we watch for that and we head it off before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have zoning and subreg updates coming, so that might be a place to be like, oh, well, we won't be allowing that in the
And
future.
RFP still on track for first week in July to be out the door for consultants to update zoning and subregs.
Okay.
So just to show some of the damages around town, I'll move through these pretty quick. The first picture there on the left you saw earlier, that's the debris buildup behind the twin bridges. You've got, this is the pedestrian bridge that collapsed over Brookhaven Creek. When it collapsed, it wound up kind of clogging. They got in there and removed it real quick. We got alerted to that. We granted them emergency to get that flooding, to get that cleared so that it didn't impede. And they've already come back. We issued a floodplain permit yesterday for them to rebuild this pedestrian bridge because it connects a small community to their pool, and they're not able to access their pool right now. And then the last one there is the 10-mile Flat Creek bank that eroded. It's moved 15 feet and it's continuing to move now. So, and this is an area that is actually HOA maintained. And back in 2015, we told them they were having some bank erosion problems that needed to be maintained, needed to be looked at, started addressing, and now it's starting to become a major issue. So again, deferred maintenance becomes a concern. And that's one place your question earlier is, could we take it over? That's hard for me to say we want to take over that liability. Do we need to bring it up to code and then we'll take it over? But obviously we need to assist in that in some way. I don't have the answers to that. I think that's something we're going to put a lot of time and consideration into about how we move forward in that type of scenario.
Well, that was kind of the scenario with the dam at Summit Lakes. Because
Yes.
they had 600,000 in there, they had some amount of money
Correct.
collected up that they had collected up as dues to start.
Mhm.
But they never had enough to be able to get to the whole project.
And we also did several starts and stops. We did a construction manager risk that they asked for that wound up not working, and then it fell apart, and then that didn't move forward. And then we started saying, let us try to help you find some funding to get this completed. And so the city has gone and assisted in getting the grant award for to get the project moved forward. And then we will take over the construction management, whether we do it by contractor in-house, we're deciding right now. So this is the picture here on the left is the Rock Creek Road between 60th and 48th Northwest, where we had to close the road and it's been closed. You can see there's a nice black hole there. We were aware that this situation was starting to occur, and this was on our radar to get replaced. We'd started having pipe, we'd been in discussion, we'd done some preliminary work, but this pushed that time frame forward for us considerably. The picture on the right is what it looked like last night. The pipes are being removed, the dirt's being piled up. We're going to be replacing all those pipes. These are corrugated metal pipes, which is the spiral metal pipe you see. We don't use that anymore. Our soils are too corrosive, they're hot, we can't use that. We're using different pipe now. It's not a material that we routinely see anymore. This is a couple of photos here of Indian Hills Road between 24th Avenue Northwest and Blue Lake Drive. The one there at night's kind of cool. You can see the lights off in the distance. The picture on the right, that pipe that you can see sticking out, that location washed out. This was a location that we had the road closed signs that the citizens kept throwing them and then driving over it. And we're going, no, please stop. We just didn't have the ability to get concrete barricades out there. But this was a project, again, we knew this was starting to occur. Corrugated metal pipe that was degrading. And we had already had a project online with the county. The county is going to assist us in this project. The pipe was ordered, we had it on hand. We just went in and did the work to get the road open as quickly as possible. This is another problem we're starting to see a lot. This is backyard on Rambling Oaks Drive. And you can see those two nice holes there. Those aren't gophers. Those are actually places where the dirt has washed out around the pipe. This is a camera of that pipe. The dirt you see in the bottom there is not dirt in the pipe. That is the dirt under the pipe. The pipe is completely eroded away. You can see the damage a little further up the pipe, and you shouldn't see the pipes dip like this. It should be straight. So we're having considerable damage here, and it's because this old pipe is deteriorating. Again, these are items that more significant maintenance and evaluation program would be able to catch before it came to this level. So this is Robinson Street. You can see there, the first photo on the left, those ripples, that's where those holes are. And this is probably right after they started occurring. There in the middle, a great picture showing what it looked like not long after it started to fully fall apart. And then there on the far right, after it collapsed all the way across. Again, corrugated metal pipes eaten out. This is 6 48-inch pipes side by side.
Oh my God.
And at least 2 of them are completely failed in this photo. We get a lot of questions. Why haven't you started on this? Why haven't you fixed it already? The pipe got delivered for this repair last week. We actually got contacted. We've been reaching out going, when can we get pipe? When can we get pipe? And we were actually told at one point they did not have the steel available to manufacture the pipe for us to be able to do this project. So we've started work, we're out there. This is what it looked like at the end of the day yesterday. This is a significant problem. We really can't lay pipe in 4 foot of water. So we've got to get water to move. We don't know if we need to build a copper dam and pump. We don't know if we hope that in a few days this drains out. But this looks to me that there's probably some blockages downstream that aren't cleared, that are on private property. So we're monitoring this. We're going to continue to do it. By the way, in this case, we are coming back with corrugated metal pipe, but it is epoxy coated. And this is going to be a project that we'll be looking at to find a way to get this entire roadway out of the floodplain, construct structures that actually can transfer the water properly and not have flooding issues in this location. So this is a long-range project, a long-range plan. This is considered a bridge, so this could be a high priority for a second bridge bond if we get that far and if we do a second one. This is the bridge over at Imhoff Road over Imhoff Creek, the one that we just spent several $1 million repairing because of damage and erosion around the structure. This is on the north side where it's coming from Norman, from Core Norman. You can see all the debris that built up there. This one is probably one of the worst, but it's also one of the larger channels, but this is very typical of what we're dealing with at all of our bridges and crossings right now. It's just a lot of debris.
And Jason, your team is the team that clears all that?
We actually contracted that one because we were worried about more flooding and us having time. We have a great local vendor, but that cost us $6,000 to get that cleared in about 24 hours. Just because we were concerned about, like I said, did not want that blocked if we got another round of rain.
And that also freed up our crews to go deal with the smaller stuff that we're a little bit more able to handle quickly.
Right.
It wasn't just public works stuff that got damaged. That picture there on the left is the sewer failure. There's at 730 Stinson. This is down south of the duck pond down in that area. Tree fell due to stream bank stabilization issues. Came down and broke the pipe. That is raw sewage flowing into the creek right there. They were able to get it shut off. They pumped around. They did an immediate repair. They're still working to do the permanent repair. Line maintenance did a great job reacting to this as soon as we knew about it. And it was a minimal damage issue, but again, it's not just our stuff. In the 2015, at the OU golf course at the bridge to the west, there was a washout, a tree fell, broke a sewer line, and that's why we did that huge project stabilizing banks in conjunction with OU on the golf course. And then the next photo there is the Post Oak Bridge just to the west of Classen Boulevard, partially washed out. The crews came in and were able to do some repair to get people to their homes safely that live back in that area. I'll go quick here. You can read as well as I can. 41 pothole locations is way low. I think that was a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure that it's because we continue to get calls daily of new potholes, and it's caused by the rain events. 1,300 pounds of cold patch, 4 tons of hot mix, 3 tons of gravel, 10 locations where we're trying to get debris removed, 3 pipe washouts, 2 bridges still closed. The bottom one there, though, stormwater damage, the one like I showed you on Rambling Oaks that's become evident due to this storm. That's 1,600 linear foot of pipe that this storm has shown us is damaged, ranging from 18 to 56-inch pipe. And we do not have the funding to go and do these repairs right now. We're looking for those funds and how we can get to those.
I had a question. Like when they were saying there's emergency funds for repairs for homeowners and whatnot, does that include us at all, or?
We have not seen anything that's been posted yet for hazard mitigation for this storm event.
Okay.
We continue to look. I know that our fire department, our emergency management group are watching that closely, and if it pops up, we're ready to jump. We are watching. We've also had in the past with the fire event that we had several years ago, as well as the tornado that all went through East Norman. CDBG actually came back after the fact with some DR, some disaster relief money, and we were successful and we were able to repair 14 miles of roadway in the end. Yeah, a little more than that, and we're able to get some of those locations up out of the floodplain when we redid those structures.
So,
Scott, sorry. A lot of the thing about grant money for things like the stormwater infrastructure, those aren't things that would be covered by the grant because that damage wasn't specifically caused by the storm. These were things that we discovered, these are maintenance issues that we've discovered were exacerbated by the storm, but they're not things that would necessarily qualify for like the HMGP grants and things like that.
okay. So again, stormwater utility fee, can't hammer it home enough.
Well, I'm gonna hammer it home some more now. This is an old, something that somebody else put out that we stole for today. These are some of your top communities by size in Oklahoma. And if you notice, there are 2 on this list that don't have a stormwater utility, Norman and Moore. Moore said enough, they now have a stormwater utility fee, leaving Norman to be the only major community in Oklahoma that does not have a stormwater utility fee. We're also the only municipality that has to get citizen vote for increase or
Establishment.
establishment of new fees. Obviously, if we had, a reliable annual funding amount, we could do more with our maintenance activities that could help alleviate some of these problems. But even with that, large capital would still need that was always, even back to the stormwater master plan, it was a utility and a bond package. And that's what we came forward to the voters with the last time that we did the vote, which, obviously was not successful. But, funding is a critical item that we deal with, and it impedes our ability to prepare and recover from these type of storm events.
I was gonna say, when we did the utility rate or rate increase for water, we had done like some surveys, I wanna say. Are we in a position after we get through stormwater master plan adoption, all that, to be able to put surveys out and kind of get the community sentiment?
So I think, was the bridge bond the last survey we did where we asked them 25 million 5-year, 50 million
Yeah.
10-year? You let
Some of
us
that,
put together that strategy for you. You say when, but boy, was the survey dead on accurate with what the voters said they wanted and what they approved.
Yeah, I think there would be value in doing that. And also, I'm in a bubble, especially in the core where we've noted all the infrastructure. So, and I think Ward 4 has consistently said yes, but it would be nice to know if what I think I'm hearing from the other wards is accurate, where there are people who are interested in revisiting a stormwater utility fee.
Mrs. Verska leads that charge, and we'll be back to you.
It'll be done.
I think you guys probably listened to me enough for today, but if you have any other questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer those, or you can always reach out. We're happy to assist and answer questions.
So when you ponder the timing of, today's weather event, all we lived through in April, information gathered and presented today, and even that request with Mrs. Verska to put together similar survey questions and put together the process for you. We're also rapidly approaching your annual retreat, and there could be some great strategies on how council decides to proceed with data provided to you between now and that retreat date. So,
That's great.
thank you.
We're gonna keep fixing roads, fixing drainage, cleaning them out.
They got
Thank
some
you, sir.
cleaned out today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much, very thorough. All right. We're fixing to go into executive session. And so what that means is that there's just council sending in here. Would you be so kind as to wait for maybe 35, 40 minutes?
Just do like a 10-minute recess or something?
Sir, you wanna take a 10-minute break?
You want to do a 10
I'll
minutes?
second that recess.
That's what we'll do. We'll take a break.
Joshua.